the coolest parts of my job are the fact that, of course, you meet some of your favorite artists ever, but you also get access to stuff that nobody else sees. I ask creators to share their secret playlist with me all the time because I'm a bit of an audiophile and I'm constantly listening to music. And I think it makes you feel special and it becomes your own archive of memories. And I like being behind the scenes. I like being the person who organizes because I want aspects of how I experience things to be seen or heard or experienced. And it gives me a lot of joy to be able to do that.
Yeah, Bohemian Pursuits podcast.
Welcome to the Bohemian Pursuit podcast, set to unleash the creative in you, with your hosts, Mickey, aka Mixer the Comic, and Epi.
All right, welcome to another episode of Bohemian Pursuit, and today we have joining us Aditi Sreevathsa. Yay, got that
Yay!
right. Who is a music and arts and culture curator, and also is into circus arts. She does aerial silk. Welcome to the show, Aditi.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Hey, Aditi.
Hi.
How's it going, Aditi?
Pretty great. I really, really can't complain. It's been spectacular 2 years of everything, really. But I'd be really selfish to say that, considering the pandemic and considering the overall situation, I imagine. But I think I'm allowed to be a little bit selfish.
I'm gonna be a little honest here. I'm not sure exactly what you do. I'm hoping you can help me understand what exactly an arts and culture curator does.
So it is, I think, a fairly misunderstood word, a curator, and people tend to use it for all sorts of things, from people who are collecting stuff to people who are archiving stuff. But for me, it's about designing the entire process or the journey from a producer to a consumer and beyond that. So I think that applies to different sorts of art forms or even genres in the culture space, but you're putting together the entire experience for both the person who's producing the art. If it's a musician, it's a musician. If it's a dancer, it's a dancer. From the time where you pick them or you pick a particular piece of work that they've created, to how it's marketed, to how it's processed, to how it's understood, and ultimately to how it's consumed by by a member of the audience. And you also try and feed it back into the value chain or the value circle by giving the audience enough information to sort of invest in the arts, really. So this entire process, it's an end-to-end sort of connecting the dots sort of role.
Right. I figured. I mean, I see a lot of artists fail right there, which is selling themselves, actually putting their content out there, and having people listen to it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
so in that sense, I guess that's the area that you take care of, right? You
yeah.
package it so that people can consume it, and
Yeah, that's
something.
very much true. I think artists do struggle with marketing themselves, and this is true even for, say, somebody who is producing an agricultural product. Like at that level, I think people who create are extremely good at creating, and all their efforts and energies is sort of invested in that process. And it helps to have that one extra perspective, one to keep the creative integrity of a piece of work, and two to also have the business sense to be able to get what the creator really wants out of that business transaction, because ultimately, like in the entertainment space, it is a business transaction between a producer and consumer. But of course, you want to give equal portions of the experience to all parties involved, from an artist to a promoter to the member of the audience. So every member in this value chain wants something in return that is equal, and the way to sustain it is to be able to give them that. Say if it's a 25% part of the experience is oriented to creator, and 25% of the experience is oriented towards what a promoter wants to bring to the table, and 25% to what an audience expects from a show.
What does an audience expect from a
I
show?
think to be entertained, fully free of cost, because of course,
Fully free of cost.
yeah, you'd be
Ideally,
real surprised though.
ideally free.
Yeah, it's something that we do on a daily basis. I think I'm also guilty of it on some level. Like you wanna watch a movie for free because everything's digital now, and you sometimes wonder what the point of investing in something like that is. But ultimately, I think people tend to forget that there's so many different people involved in putting something like that together. If it's a show online, it's a show online. If it's a show offline, it's a show offline. If it's an actual piece of art, something that an artist has sort of painted over a period of, say, a couple of months, it's the resources that's gone into it, and the entire creative process from the artist's perspective. So that's what you're investing in. You're not investing in being entertained or actually consuming the end product. You're investing in the value chain and investing in trying to take forward an art form, really, and keeping it from dying out or whatever.
Yeah. Could you imagine paying for music 10 years ago?
Man,
10, 15 years ago? I was just torrent
I
everything,
know.
MP3, download MP3s.
Exactly.
We'll
There's
download that one virus for on the family computer
correct. That's right. There's Skull MP3 and
for that one track.
Pirate Bay and all of these platforms where you would just get torrents and really download like the entire album.
Exactly, entire discographies. You didn't even have to like waste the time to find each individual song. There, like, you just download GBs and GBs of music. But like, what's interesting is we've switched to like paid music. The moment like when it got available, right? When it became available, or when it became accessible. I mean, I would have liked the. It's not like I want to the artist to like die of starvation or something, and then I don't want to pay the guy. That I don't know how to pay him, like in a way that it gets to him, right? But yeah, I think the moment it's happened, we've all switched to a platform where we pay for it. Like I have Spotify, Google, and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
Uh,
subscribe to all of this now.
yeah,
Do people go out buy CDs anymore?
I don't think so. I think you buy CDs.
Maybe.
I think
maybe as a
yeah, people do it out of good faith, and I think Bandcamp is one of those spaces now that offer like digital CDs, and you can also buy merch from an artist's promotional and whatnot. But I think it's a pretty good balance in a way. All of these platforms, of course, offer a certain amount of money to a musician or to whoever's sort of putting their work out there for sale. Um, at the same time, the returns are so little, and it just sort of makes you wonder. I think you need to be able to really like break into the industry and make it, even as an independent musician, to have actual real returns that sort of sustain your livelihood or help pay the bills and whatnot. And I think that puts a lot of pressure to create more and more stuff, so it all aggregates. But I think it should more so be driven by promoting a piece of content in the right sorts of ways, as opposed to constantly creating more and more stuff. Of course, that's the ultimate goal, but I think there needs to be more thought. There needs to be more of an idea and more of a curation per release of art or music or choreography, even.
Yeah, I mean, we'd agree with you on that because we've been trying ourselves to sell Bohemian Pursuits out there, like promote it. Yeah,
Yeah,
but there's so many avenues that we feel like we haven't touched, or we haven't explored.
I
Yeah,
hear
I mean,
you.
it is difficult for a content creator because people have so much to choose from.
True,
You're like a little goldfish in the ocean, so like it's so difficult. And that's why, I mean, we're grateful to have people like you, an art curator that puts all of this together, gets people more recognition.
for sure.
It must be fulfilling. But is there like a professional education that you went through to get to this?
Not at all. I don't think anything I'm doing I've learned at school. Uh, to be very, very honest with you, I did. I was in the culture space back at uni as well. Something that I was actually thinking about the other day as well. I did media and culture, and media. This was University of Sussex in Brighton, and they're quite infamous to have hosted people like Radiohead and Pink Floyd and um, you start off as a metalhead and you start off with psychedelic rock and this sort of music, right? It's your foundation almost as a 90s kid or a late 80s kid, rather. So I went to Sussex and it was very much part of the South Asian diasporic community, not just Indians necessarily, but people from Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Singapore, all sorts of spaces. And we were constantly putting together productions of one festival or the other. We were making zines, we were doing podcasts, we had university radio. So all of these activations sort of caught the eye of this producer by the name of Ajay Chabra, and he runs this production company called Nutcut in Brighton. And that was my break into the arts and entertainment industry, really. He sort of found me at uni and he was putting together a curation for Brighton Festival 2016, 2015 rather. And the Queen was meant to attend it. And it was supposed to be an edition that was commemorating yeah, it was something that was commemorating Indian soldiers that were sort of hospitalized at this iconic building in Brighton at the time called the Brighton Dome. It's got this Indian facade on the outside, but it's completely tripped out on the inside. Like there's Oriental interiors, and there's one room that's completely French, and it's meant to be disguised. But coming back to the story of this curation, it's during the World Wars, soldiers were housed there and they were sort of looked after as well. And there's like lots of archives of people writing letters to their hometowns. And with Nutcut in particular, we were going to put together a performance arts sort of curation for the program. And that was really my introduction to the people in the industry. And I managed to actually meet quite a few producers via this network, and I met musicians in the UK, and it was very much into ska and very much into grime and hip hop at the time. So it became one of those things. I would go out to clubs and meet more people, and then I ended up coming back here, then with the humming tree, and then fandom, and too many things after. A label in between, Aruku Coffee, which is a complete relearning in everything I know. Um, and I think it really like puts the money where the mouth is, and I don't think a lot of people are as honest as the folk at Aruku Coffee. And then now, of course, I'm with Times Internet.
Aruku Coffee isn't an event management. Is it an event management company? Okay. Yeah.
to to say that they're a coffee shop is to undermine every single effort. I think from a perspective of a producer, um, they are essentially this entity that works with farmers at a farm level. Aruku coffee comes from the Aruku Valley, which is 120 kilometers off of Vizag. It's a collective of villages, and what they have done at a farm level is essentially break into a community that's predominantly led by Naxals and strike a balance that sort of does not disrupt that community in any way, but allows for people within that community to choose more productive ways of, I don't know, really using their energy as opposed to violence or slightly more destructive means, really. And they've actually been recognized for their work at that farm level by Rockefeller Foundation as the food system vision for the future. And what they've done is to remove chemicals and chemical fertilizers from that equation to recreate the topsoil revolution, and to really say that with organic agriculture, there is there is a future for it, and it is actually more sustainable for our entire planet because you're one reducing your carbon footprint on so many different levels, and two, you shouldn't have to require like a certificate to declare that you're organic. But our reality is one that doesn't question like a chemically treated produce but questions an organically produced item. But the idea is that entire communities within this sort of structure of agriculture and sustainability can continue to produce without ensuring any detrimental damage to the environment, by ensuring profit for farmers, by ensuring quality produce for the end consumer, which is what everybody wants. It ticks all the boxes, and I think that's really commendable for them to have done. And my role with Aruku was to really tell their story in the best light possible and in the most honest ways possible, transparency and complete traceability across the value chain. And it was also to put together an entire culture that's built around this ethos of PQR, which is profit for farmers and quality nutrition for producers and regenerative agriculture for the planet. This is from promoting independent music, of course, again, with this factor of honesty. And it is to be able to push more producers in textile, in books, and in all sorts of arts and culture fields or genres that align
Right.
themselves with this ethos, really.
At what stage of their growth did you meet Aruku Coffee?
Aruku Coffee and I were really, it was a short stint. I'm sad to say, but I joined them the start of this year, which is January 2021, and I worked with them for a period of 6 months. The project lasted that long, and that's why it was so short. But I was there mostly to put together a structure for them, and I launched the cafe on 12th Main Road in Ranagar as well, and we made a whole load of noise about it. We had this like projections on the facade, and it was a pretty big deal. And I think they're here to sort of revolutionize, of course, the coffee space definitely, because that is their main produce. But they also want to get into agriculture as well. So it's very recent, but it's my stint with Arco has actually completely changed how I make decisions now, and I think that was quite important for me to take away from that space as well. It made me very creatively acute, and it gave me a very different business acumen. Even, and I think there are people out there.
Right,
People want to choose better, and you just got to tap into those sensibilities.
right. I'm curious what the word culture means to you.
This is actually the toughest question anybody can ever ask you because it's
Good job, Abby.
it's an entire way of life, and it's something that I have actually been trying to unpack since uni and before that. And to be very honest, I was actually studying to be a doctor, and I would have gone ahead with it. And it was a complete shift for me because I was like, wait, I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I have to start questioning that. And for me to be able to question meant that I had to be in the culture space because understanding culture and what it means has a lot to do with questioning the time and space and the positioning of an entity in any given time and space. Again, everything is suspended in this like divide of time and space. Everything is contextualized in a time and space. And culture, how I would understand it is an entire way of life. It's stuff that's boring and becomes a routine. It's part of your everyday, and it's also stuff that people communities have sort of created to identify themselves. It's different categories and labels, and it's memory, it's nostalgia, it's and the extension of that, the product of culture is art, and it's music, and it's dance, and it's stuff that comes through the process of having lived a culture. That's what it is to me, and I think that's going to always evolve as a definition. You shouldn't be able to put like a finger on what exactly culture means, and I like that it's so fluid and it flows, and that it's ever changing, and it's a subjective experience, and everybody has their own definition of what culture is.
Right. Why is it important though?
If it was stagnant,
Why is it needed?
if it was
Mm-hmm.
stagnant, you would make it absolute, and I don't think culture is an absolute thing. It's meant to change, and that's why it's important. And I think like even generations to come will have a culture that's both similar and different from the one that we're living, because of course some things are meant to cross over from our generation to the next, and the next generation is going to create their own culture of their time, and it can never be absolute because of that.
Music and dance and art is a way to communicate with
Yeah,
our next
that's
generations.
true. It's very, very true. um,
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
done like over the years. I mean, our parents introduced us to music, and we got introduced to so
But
many
we
art
don't
forms.
really listen to the music that our parents introduced us to, right?
Sometimes, bro, when you're getting high outside, I've seen you sing.
that's right. Don't lie. You know you like your ABBA and possibly
Oh yeah,
Boney
for sure. Westlife, to be
dude.
completely honest with you.
Westlife was the shiz. It was great.
No, yeah. Now that I think about it, like, I mean, when we wake up in the morning and go to school, like my dad had this CD, this Westlife CD that he would put into the CD player, and it's the same same side that that he starts every morning. And by the time we've left, it's just the same. It's still the A side, you know. And I mean, I knew every song on that list. I knew, I mean, at what point I need to start getting ready, at what point I'd be eating my breakfast.
Oh,
It's
so you
part of a
try using
routine.
it as a timesheet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a time
But
machine.
yeah, I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
And I think like
I
all
did.
of these people who have sort of made music in that given time period, like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC before Justin Timberlake became Justin Timberlake, and all of these people have sort of created history in some way, and they want that part of their art creation or that era of their art creation to remain alive, and it does. Like we're still talking about it, so I think that has some
Right.
relevance.
I'm trying to understand what kind of culture Westlife has given me, or like
Boy
Backstreet
band
Boys has
culture.
given
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, like, do you play an instrument, Aditi?
I d- it's a secret, but yeah, I used to play the ukulele, the harmonica, and the guitar, and back in the day before I even knew I wanted to be in this industry. I was playing blues music with my then band Copper Sulfate, and I thought it was really witty to have named it Copper Sulfate because it's blue, and we were singing the blues. Uh,
Right, yeah. That just takes me back to chemistry class
yeah.
suddenly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was a total geek, right? Let's not forget I was studying to be a doctor.
Right, exactly. I mean,
What
you were
doctor were
studying
you
to be
studying to be?
Sorry, say again.
What doctor were you studying to be?
I was
What kind?
gonna be a cardiologist, and I actually got through med
Ah,
school and yeah, all of that, and I
wow.
just changed my
you
mind.
really let your parents down, no?
Yeah. Oh man, but
But like you studied biology and like what's that
yeah, I
PCMB?
was PCMB at PU college, and then I did pre med. You have to give this entrance exam, and I actually got to Ramaya Medical College, and I just decided that it's not something that I wanted to do. And with my band, we were actually doing really well for that time, and we were playing
Probably
shows
feels.
every weekend, and
Which you'll play?
Oh,
we were playing at Green Theory and Urban Solace and Pebble, and I was playing rhythm and I was doing vocals. We were writing music, and And then my bandmates ended up
Shit,
moving.
okay, Opus is a
Yeah,
thing
Opus is a
back
thing
Yes,
then,
as
yes.
right?
well, of
Yeah,
Opus
course.
was a big
yeah,
thing till the whole thing happened.
Yes,
yeah.
that's true. And flea
Wait,
markets as well.
what happened
Oh,
to Opus?
the owner fell off the building, and I think after that it just all went crashing down. I mean,
Yeah.
with her. I mean,
With-
I think since then, performance venues have had a pretty bad rep. Either they shut down because of quote unquote noise, which is not really true
Hmm.
because they're taking complete precautions to make sure there's no leakage of noise. Maybe they're really reckless and they just want to party, but yeah, it's been quite a difficult process to sustain performance venues. But Opus still
Yeah, but
exists to an extent in our hearts.
yeah, but it
the
doesn't do as well as it used to before. I mean, before it hosted Raja Ram, and they hosted so many big people,
That's
and
true.
yeah, now
no,
like I haven't seen anyone post up anything saying, "Hey, you should come down to Opus," and
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody's just chilling at pubs now
Yep.
and watching.
Indranagar, dude. Indranagar has become the new Opus.
That's true. There was also
Uh,
counterculture for a time, if you guys remember, and I think this was pre-humming as well, pre-humming tree era,
Okay.
and they were doing quite well for again their time, and it was kind of like Blue Frog Bombay, and they would host bands from all over India and beyond it, and counterculture is now doing collectives within the comedy space, and again like just understanding like an entity's journey from what it was to what it is now sort of helps you understand the struggles in between as well. And I think like music is jinxed. Uh, music in particular is jinxed because we're especially now we're in the flux between people who don't really understand entertainment as an actual skill or as an actual career to people who want to do more offbeat careers going forward. It's like we're stuck in between. But that also means that we get to change a lot of stuff and help people understand better. So again, like a really important moment in time to be able to change perspective.
hmm. You hit on something interesting there, like the sound that these places make. I mean, the usual complaint from bars and pubs and like these these spaces is that there's a noise issue, and and the neighbors come together, which is exactly what's happened in Indranagar,
Yeah.
right? The neighbors association comes together. You bring together all these neighbors, and they're all like,
Rallying all
"No,
the
listen."
Karens.
Yeah. Karens of
There's all
Indranagar.
the Karens. I agree.
Yeah. But what do you mean they do? They take precaution. Like if you go down Indranagar, there's in the middle of the night. I mean, late night. There's a lot of noise from from a lot of from pubs and all. I get why these they complain,
Yeah.
uh,
I think there's two
but
folds. One is, of course, there's recorded music that every single pub plays for background entertainment for their users and for people who attend. I mean, who are at the pub, right? And there's live music, and I think live music tends to bear a lot of the brunt for um, volumes and levels that potentially is caused by recorded music. And I will give you an example of what I mean. When I was at the Humming Tree, it was, I think, just the start of this entire thing in Indranagar with the residents and with quote unquote noise and licenses and all of this came into the picture. Firstly, there's not really a license for for public performances or live performances. That doesn't exist. The one that exists is something that was set in place during the colonial period for dance bars, and that's the same license that's currently being used for spaces that offer live performances. Yeah.
what? Like they haven't updated that. I thought they had a separate license for places with live music, a separate license for if you didn't. Really?
Yep.
Is that a lie?
That's a lie. It's a
No.
lie. So
A lot,
these spaces
a
started.
So they're
lot of
all dance bars, officially dance bars.
Yeah.
the
Oh.
not stripping kind.
Yeah. So people wanted to see licenses, which was completely outdated, and the residents started to complain about noise But however, all of the performance venues are soundproof. They have enough padding, they have enough, they've taken enough precautions to ensure the sound doesn't leak out during sound check. Even like your sound engineer of course is monitoring your levels indoors, and there's people on ground who do the entire operations, who are out and about circuits. I mean, they're going around in circles within a 4 mile radius to check sound levels on the outside. It's a precise art form to even control sound and what a sound engineer does really. So at Humming, even at Fandom, we did this on a regular basis. But I think a lot of the anger from a resident's perspective was not necessarily for noise, but more so how people conducted themselves once they left a pub, once they left a performance venue. So you would, I mean,
Yeah, that was their problem.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's true.
having drunk people fall in front of their gates and
You can't
take a
be
piss on their
responsible.
car.
Yeah, that's true. As somebody who runs a pub, you can only be responsible for people while they are within
So
that premises, and you can't control what they do after they leave.
And they pointed the finger at
Yeah,
you.
they did. And Humming actually had a few other problems. The building didn't have a fire exit at the time, so they built that and they had that in place. And this entire anger of the residents sort of continued, and it didn't really let them go too far, which eventually led to the downfall of the space itself. And of course, there's this other struggle on the other side where people don't want to pay for entertainment. They don't want to pay for it. So the money wasn't really, helping sustain the space. And that's also part of the reason why people need to be able to think about like what goes into a curation of an event.
yeah, there's a lot of back end work
Yeah,
to that.
yeah.
Yeah, but so I wanted to know like how as a first of all when you're playing live music, when you were performing, there's never a possibility of where you could control the crowd or you could control um the sound,
You really
right?
can't. Yeah, you really
Yeah,
can't.
like I remember old Bangalore. Like old Bangalore had this whole welcoming culture of people playing music, and it was all rooftop, um, open spaces. It was not like a closed enclosed place,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's
And
true.
I have no idea what happened suddenly. People just lost their shit. Like nobody likes music or what anymore.
That's true. I think again it's got to do with this like people trying to understand entertainment is a real thing and not just a space where people come to get drunk. And I mean you're meant to have fun. Like if you're gonna be out and about and listening to music, of course you want to get drunk, and of course like you're gonna smoke some
Yeah.
joints and like have a baller time, and you want to enhance your experience. But it's not all that it is. You're also there because you enjoy something so much that you want to experience it live and you want to do it over and over. I don't think people who are older have had the privilege to be able to experience something like that for a sustained period of time, so they don't understand for whatever reason. But um, it's going to be a time consuming process, but I do think it will change for the better. Um, yeah.
I also think that there's that one uncle that comes to all these parties and sends group messages to the family. Look, they're doing drugs here. This is what your child comes to do. I
Gosh,
took the joint, by the way.
that's true.
Yeah,
But
damn.
funnily, like all of the people that used to attend these gigs, right? There used to be shows at Palace Grounds all the time back in the day, and
Yeah.
the same uncles and aunties who went to these gigs tend to come to shows that are more rock and roll oriented at performance venues, and you can see them in the corner like having a drink. And they're the most amazing sort of company to keep because they've seen this like music scape go through so many different changes. And I love that. Like I'm such a nerd, I want to understand how it's been and what we can do to do better. um, but I think the problem really comes from the 20 million others who are not part of this like culture of going out and being okay with drinking, being okay with like smoking a bit. The problem really is outside of this community. And when I say community, of course, I'm not just considering musicians, dancers, comedians, and whatnot, but it's also the people that consume it, and that are also very much important part of this community.
Hectic. Uh, but how's the space been since the lockdown? I mean, it's probably the sector that was hit the hardest with the lockdown, right? I can't imagine musicians. I mean, what musicians and yeah, well, anybody that really has a performance based art, how they've been through
Mm.
the lockdown.
I think entertainment is always the first to be affected because nobody cares about it as
Right.
much as other industries.
That's true.
But you find more creative ways of sustaining yourself, and I think that's what happened with the lockdown as well. Of course, this whole digital presence was a thing even before the lockdown, but it was just more so amplified with physical spaces closing down, and musicians, of course, tend to take more to now understanding the algorithm of a platform. So if it's Instagram, you want to understand, okay, this is how an algorithm works. This is how many posts you need to create to be able to get noticed, and you're acquiring a whole different skill set. And that's also got to do with marketing yourself again. And I think that was the shift. Everything became digital, and you wanted to understand how the digital space worked. Was it rigged? Is it not rigged? And if it's not rigged, how do you beat the algorithm so you get the best out of that experience as well?
So for our listeners, can you just help us understand how performance based I'm a performer can start to monetize from these platforms? Yeah, can you like how do I get started?
Depending on the platform, you have certain benchmarks that have been set up for creators to be able to monetize. Of course, once you have a piece of, okay, let's talk about music because it's so familiar to all of us. Dance and theater is a little more complicated because there needs to be some sponsors involved and whatnot. But with music, when you create a track and you've published it on a DSP. If it's YouTube, it's YouTube. It's also Spotify, Apple Music, and what happens with um, aggregators like Spotify and Apple Music is that you get paid per listen, per click, per impression. That's the sort of way it's calculated. With YouTube is actually an excellent platform to monetize your content. Once you hit a 5,000 number on your subscribers, you begin to monetize on the content that you put out on YouTube. You can also monetize on Facebook and Instagram. Both platforms have their own benchmarks to be able to do so. um, but with live shows and live streams, there's different ways of thinking about it. Of course, the traditional way is to ticket your performance and make sure like people are buying your tickets, and they're feeding into this ethos of a live performance or a live curation. That's one way of making money from a live performance, but it's also to be able to liaise with that live streaming platform. um, People like Skillbox are doing it. I'm doing it right now with Times Internet. So we liaise with artists to be able to give them access to an audience of 20 million new daily users. To be able to, I mean, as a platform, I will monetize from it, and a part of that share, either I can give them a landed fee for their performance, or I can give them a fee based on the number of viewers and the number of engagement, the amount of engagement that the performance has had.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just need to put out content and hope that something sticks. Is that the best way to go about it?
Yes and no. You put out content. That's something that needs to happen regardless of whether or not you're making money from it. But to be able to put out content that is good quality in your opinion, and to be able to connect with people who understand the value of that piece of content and can help you put it out there in the light that's true to your own art, without cannibalizing the entire concept of that, and to still get an audience to understand it in that way and to be able to invest in it. That's an important link. Of course, like I think creators have the ability to do that themselves, but it's always helpful to have one different perspective from a manager, from an artist manager, or from a curator like myself and even Mikkel. And I think it helps because you, of course, have your industry network. You can connect the dots in very different ways. You can connect a creator with brands that might pick up your tune or your content for their promotional material. If it's an ad, your sync rights come into this picture, and you get contracted for all sorts of work that will pay the bills. But again, I think the challenge is to be able to not completely change your art for this intention to sell it.
Right. But inevitably, I'm going to start like marketing collagen based supplements or something like
Bound to happen.
that.
Bound to happen.
Collagen is listening.
Yeah.
Abby uses a lot.
Ziva, yes, collagen. Ziva, Mr. Ziva. I use your collagen supplements daily.
For anybody that can't see, I mean, of course, this is a podcast, but basically, Abe had a product placement very slyly.
We ain't getting sponsored by it though. Abby spent his own money.
But I use the products daily. No, but yeah, I think podcasting in that sense is a really good platform to like I mean to for product placement and that sort of thing
Yeah,
because people that listen to podcasts really believe the host. There's that there is some metric like that like podcasts do better with product placements. Like the reason I'm listening to as a listener, the reason that you listen to a podcast is because
trust somebody's
you
opinion.
trust somebody's opinion that much, and if they recommend a product to you, you're probably going to say, yeah, listen, okay, I'm going to give this a
Yeah.
shot because you use it, and
Yeah, like
yeah,
Mike
that's true.
Tyson and Joe Rogan and those.
But
Listen
how,
to the
Dude,
buds.
I love
Yay.
Joe Rogan. So good.
yeah, Joe Rogan's entire product placement is on his table.
Yeah.
Or in a joint.
Right. But how does a musician do it? What does a musician do?
Um,
Like how?
Musicians have it, I think, really hard. I actually know a whole bunch of musicians who have tracks that they haven't published because they don't know what tonality and what they want to say with that track. And a close friend, I think any musician actually has a whole bunch of tracks that they haven't released and they don't know how to release. They want to, you get into this creative process where you want to make it better constantly and you don't know where to stop. um that's where like a sound engineer comes into the picture and a producer comes into the picture and be like, yo man, this is a great track, you just got to put it out there. The hook is great and it's going to be viral, and this is viral factor now with attention spans getting smaller and content pieces getting smaller as well. Within like 15 seconds you need to convince somebody that you're awesome. And
Yeah,
I
there's
think
some Wolf of Wall Street bullshit going on with
yeah,
people's attention
yeah,
span.
guys. Like, what happened to long format video, right? Um,
Yeah.
but that's I think that's also consequence of the fact that there's so much content out there. So this ability to create is excellent, but I think it runs the risk of creating too much and for things to get lost in between. And it's very similar for musicians. Musicians constantly create music, and they also sometimes publish that stuff. And I think only 20% of music gets published in a creator in a musician's sort of lifespan. uh, but even that 20% needs to get the right sorts of exposures. And again, based on platform, if it's push notifications, you work with an app like Spotify to be able to get your music playlisted, or you want to find avenues to sort of build a network for your tune.
Yeah, emailing list.
Yeah, nobody
This is
looks
what
at
our
emailers
producer's been
anymore.
telling us.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I love emailers. I think Alipur Post was doing such an excellent job. It was very, very organic. So they would put together like this daily emailer with poetry, with art that's curated for that day. And there's links, so reading material, short bits of prose, and then there's listening material as well at the end. So it was all part of like one email. It was comprehensive art email.
Yeah, and like your role in all of this is behind the scenes, but you make it
Yeah, I
possible,
love
right?
being behind the scenes. Some people are just really good behind the scenes, right? You let you let the people who are on stage be on stage because they're friggin' awesome on stage. And um, for me, being behind the scenes means to be the nut and bolt and the clog of the system. And I think it's a role that comes with a lot of responsibility because you are driving popular opinion in some ways, and you're also trying to help the people that are on stage, and it's a pretty big deal. It's very difficult to not be attached to this work. It's something that you do purely because you love it, and you have to make all sorts of sacrifices. Like I have no work-life balance. Work life,
You don't
it's
have weekends. Your
don't
weekends are
have
every day.
weekends.
Yeah, Mickey, you did events too, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
This is
This
what
is
life
yeah.
is like.
yep,
You don't have friends. You have just those five people around you,
pretty much.
and pretty much.
All of you sneak out into like the green room. You're like, okay, man, this is it, and you're having a drink, and I like that. Like, I love drinking at work, and it's made me like a lot more productive. But of course, it's only because I don't have a work life balance. You don't have office hours. You don't know where it starts and ends.
Yeah, there's no start. I mean, yeah, your day starts at 12, but ends
True.
12 the next day. So
Yep.
that's fucked up.
24 hours.
Yeah, but
Shit.
once you have to put together something, it could even take a week
Yeah.
of just hardcore struggle
Yeah.
and
Proper.
fixing everything and just hoping not to kill that one person in
Yeah.
the room.
Yeah. The intention for me being part of work, I really like. I'm super organized. I'm showing Abe my room, and it kind of looks like this.
Oh,
For
you have post-its and you have
Yeah,
paint. You have like a little
color
paint.
coded
I have a
post-its.
whole bunch of color coded post-its and whatnot.
This
But
remind me of Abe's hall room when he was doing his thesis.
yeah.
Oh my god.
It looked like he was trying to
Oh
prank his
my
parents with all the post-its on the wall.
Yeah, I get you. I like being super
Yeah, but
organized. So you always want to work at least a month in advance. So you have all your ideas down and you have your processes down and you've made all the connects and everybody's doing their job and there's still space for like mistakes. And then there's a time where you execute stuff and stuff is bound to go wrong, but you take it with pride and you try and make the best out of that situation.
right, yeah, I was just thinking about it. Like, I was wondering what the flow aspect to your work is, and
Yeah.
I mean, what would you say it is? What would you say the flow in your work
I
is?
think when you start something, when you start any new project, when you pick anything new up, it's bound to be last minute because you're working for instant gratification for the consumer at the end of the day. But once you've established that instant gratification, it becomes more so about keeping that going, keeping that momentum going. And then once the momentum's there, you start working more in advance. So with both humming and with fandom, we got to a place where my calendar was programmed 2 months in advance uh, because we had an audience and we knew what they were expecting, and that was sort of established. So being able to create that calendar 2 months in advance also gave us a lot of time to think of more creative ways of doing a show, to improving your a consumer's overall experience, to be able to bring sponsors on board so everybody gets paid more than they deserve, which of course, like, you need to make money out of it. It's a business. So the flow for me has been very much that. And I think the difference now between having been in a physical live performance space to a digital one is that your curation ends after the show ends when it's in a physical space. And in a digital space, it doesn't. You carry that over to the next, you carry everything over from a show to the next show. And in a way, I think those are skills, and that's information that's actually important. So you have a debriefing, and you see what works for the digital space, and it's completely unexplored, and I think it's a bit chaotic. Nobody really understands what they're doing, but they're trying to get wrap their head around it with like,
All of us.
yeah. And technological
Yeah,
development on a daily basis, there's new features coming in the picture all the time, and you want to make the best use of it.
yeah. That's the flow that I see. It's just like you let. I mean, you have all your plans. It's all there, and it's bound to go
Yeah,
wrong. But like you, as it goes wrong, you like you course correct and you change. You make sure that everybody is still gets their value from what's happening on stage, but at the same time with as minimal damage as
yeah,
possible.
yeah, that's for sure.
You can't control everything, right? You have to let go after a point,
You
right?
must. And I have to say, I do miss like being on ground and being in a live space. There's something really exciting, and something so alive.
What do you do with times now? Can you just give us
Yeah.
a rundown about?
With Times Internet, I now manage artists and creators and partnerships. Um, Now, the way we define artists and creators, in fact, is I work predominantly in music at the moment. So it's anybody with a piece of music that's published. You define them as an artist, and you define creators as anybody with an interest in music. And this is people who make covers and who are picking up an instrument for the first time, but are really good and have the talent to make it in the space. And it's music journalists, it's people who support the music scape and the soundscape, or the industry that it is. And I work on essentially onboarding them onto the platform, incubating them, and making sure they get the best out of the platform to be able to market their work. And you I don't get into the content itself, because I think the integrity of that needs to remain with the creator. But I help them understand the platform, I help them understand the algorithm, and I give them the tools to be able to push their content, to be able to essentially market it and acquire those skills. And for me, it's also about creating opportunities for these guys. Of course, like once they've taken into consideration all the advice that I have to give them about the platform and about how it works and whatnot, and they've incorporated it within their operations on the platform. It's bound to work because you are the back end and you know the inside out of how to increase your numbers on the follower bits, or the viewership, or your engagement rate, which is like, comments, and shares. Now, again, because we're talking about digital spaces, we want to be able to create opportunities for them to be able to publish music with a completely established musician in the commercial space, trying to bridge this gap between indie and commercial and signed music. And we want to be able to create more opportunities for them to be mentored by people like Lucky Ali, or these really big folk who all of us know and love. And um, that's the role that I currently have. And again, yeah,
That sounds super exciting.
it's really exciting. And I think there's a lot of talent at the moment. Like every single person I've met through this job has been so talented, has the voice of an angel, or uh, can do two things at a time, like balance a cup of tea on their head and still play the ukulele, and do it wonderfully. And I would love to get them discovered and appreciated for what they do.
Yeah, sounds good. But you have a packed schedule with all of this. You also own a studio.
Gosh, yes.
And you don't we shall don't know the name studio, but you do aerial silk, yeah,
Yeah,
like you practice aerial silk.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's true.
how do you get into that? Was
Um,
this because of somebody you saw that inspired you?
I actually picked up circus arts when I was back at uni. Again, this is University of Sussex, and a friend. I was taking pole lessons with a friend of mine, and she said, "Hey, you know what? You should come try this." And I met a circus troupe, uh, and the best place to do it is actually Brighton because it's very quirky. It's a very quirky part of the UK, and they sort of adopted me and ended up teaching me all of these skills over a period of a year and a half, and I became quite good at it, and it was something that motivated me to get back up on my feet. And for me, the driving factor there was that you got stronger every single day, and you could see it. It was a palpable change in your body and your headspace, and generally your inspiration to be able to do more. And it sort of stuck with me. So I actually have my own studio, like you said. I haven't named it or registered it, but I would like to call it High Top Circus. Um, it's
Where is the studio?
it's in Jayanagar.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's
And you take and you conducting classes
yes.
for aerial silk and stuff?
Yeah, I do conduct classes. I'm actually introducing new equipment now because I think aerial silks, although like it looks great and it's a harder circus art to pick up, but to be able to make that process easy, I want to introduce new equipment. So rope and we have aerial lyra now at the studio, and I am conducting classes over the weekends. At the moment, it's within close circles of the circus community between Pondi, Bombay, and Goa. But I would like to very much open it up for anybody that wants to pick this up. And I think there's a real future for flow arts in India at the moment. There's whole loads of people who are basically doing all the right sorts of stuff. There's Varnashi Organic Farms that sort of organizes like get-togethers now and then, and there's the folk at Holy Stoke. Like the circus community is the best. Like the people are so lovely. They want to teach you stuff. It's a very give and take and equal respect sort of space, and I think it's wonderful to be part of it.
Yeah, that's great. We had Coach Partha on for one of our episodes, and
Yeah.
Dude,
that
that's awesome. Yeah, I love the circus people.
we're trying to get the Holy Stoke guys as well. We've talked to them; they're
That's
interested to
awesome.
like.
You're probably in touch with
Yeah,
Kevin. This is really sweet fella.
yeah. I know Kevin, but the guys that started it, Soma and Abhishek Shake and Bake. Yeah, so probably be one of them. Let's see. I mean, we're still talking to them, in
Yep.
talks with them. We figure out the details.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm,
Yep.
I
yeah,
love it.
Such a small little world. Like all of us know each other at some
yeah.
level.
No, it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
It's
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
that
cool.
could be
that's
fun.
true.
Yeah,
Again, it's this creative community that all of us are part of, right? So it's
right.
bound to happen, and I think paths cross for a reason. And every single person I've met within this community has been so different and
Yeah,
has something
and
to
dude,
offer.
and like the way I see it, this is the whole point of living,
Yeah,
like to create stuff and like do. I mean, just like explore what the world has to offer to you, figure out how you can interact with the world, in your own little way,
yeah.
and yeah, I mean,
That's why we have Bohemian Pursuits to give them like a library of, you know,
yeah,
I think what
that's
you
all.
guys
art.
are
That's
doing is so important because, of course, like not only are you speaking to people on stage, but you're also speaking to people behind the scenes. And these are people who are not recognized, they are not remembered, they are not identified even. And I think it's really important to be able to do so. And I'm so happy you guys had me on this, and so happy to be able to give this information as well. There's no you can't really it's harder to break into the industry now because there's not really set pathways to be able to do it, but I think with more stuff like this, access to people behind the scenes, people can understand that better and break into the space with a little more clarity in how to go about it. And it's pretty great, guys. It's sick that you're doing it.
yeah, sure.
Shit,
Yeah,
thanks so much. That gave
yeah,
us
we're
more
glad to have
motivation. We're
you.
gonna go have more shows now.
Yeah, I mean, we have the same sort of like creator problems are we doing the right thing? Is this good enough? Should we already put it out? Do it. The sound does it doesn't sound right. Let's do another take. All that shit is
Yeah.
there. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, yeah, it's nice to have two people to do this, because when like we sort of keep each other in check and like, calm down, you're freaking out, it's okay, or this is fine.
Yeah.
Like, let's just put it out, and let's see how, like, we'll do a better one next time. We'll just keep getting better, keep getting better. I think at the end of the day, as you get I mean, you put out wherever you are right now, and then you try to get better, and then you put out wherever you are
Yeah,
in,
that's
the next
true.
time, and then
It's a
that's your
process. You
journey,
keep
right?
getting
Having a
better.
team,
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
also having a team helps.
Yeah,
Having producers, having
yeah.
having three minds helps. Like creating on your own is quite difficult. It's quite a task because you have to handle so much
absolutely.
in that little space of time. But yeah, I mean, like doing this has just we literally we sat down, and I think the first time we actually thought we'd record, we sat down and did a script. I think 40 times,
Oh man, I can imagine.
back and forth, back and
I can
forth.
imagine.
We got so tired, and then right before we said, okay, this is the last one. We're taking a break after this. Let's go smoke a doobie, and then we'll get back to it. We just like, maybe just the thought of the doobie, just the thought of a doobie, like, it came out
Yeah,
perfectly, and that's the and yeah, that's what we went with.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, before you leave, I have one more question to ask you. Have you always been like big on organizing all your life? Is that something that you've carried with you all
yeah.
throughout?
I do. I am. It's just who I am, and I've tried being on stage, and although it's enjoyable, I think I really, really enjoy what I do, and I enjoy meeting the people that I do, and I enjoy discovering the music that I do. The coolest parts of my job are the fact that, of course, like you meet um, some of your favorite artists and favorite creators ever, but you also get access to stuff that possibly like nobody else sees. I ask creators to share their secret playlist with me all the time because I'm a bit of an audiophile and I'm constantly listening to music, and I think it makes you feel special, and it becomes your own archive of memories and stuff. And I like being behind the scenes. I like being the person who organizes stuff because I want um, aspects of how I experience things to be seen, um, or heard, or experienced, and it gives me a lot of joy to be able to do it.
Fun, crazy, sounds good. Do you have any word of advice for well, art curators starting out, or people that want to? I mean, a word of advice to creatives.
I think no amount of networking is poor. It could be one person you're reaching out to and constantly badgering. It's fine. They don't really mind it. They really don't. I don't. Myself, when people reach out to me, I really want to put my best foot forward to help, and I think it matters to be able to do that, and that's one way of breaking into the industry. And you have to keep at it. uh, you have to be a hustler, you have to be ready to sacrifice. And although this hustle culture is quite overrated, I must say, you create your own hustle. But but persist and you will get there, and it's going to be a start, and you will learn everything you need to on the job. And there's not really any formal education that anybody's looking for at any stage. Like none of my certificates have mattered through my entire career up until this point. And
Doesn't matter if you're putting
it
up
don't
posters or
matter.
getting artists.
Yeah, you just
You
gotta
learn
be.
something at every stage.
Yeah, really. And got it. I think people are just looking for an honest individual who really just wants to find middle ground and has a sort of balanced argument to make. And as long as you are aware of what you want to push, and you are aware of how you want to do things, and you're aware of the industry, and or are willing to understand how it works, that's all that matters. And yeah, everything else is learnable.
Thank you so much. That was great advice, and I hope people pick this up and more people get into the art space and the creative space. Thank you so much,
Of
Aditi. Thank you so
course.
much for your time.
Thanks for having me
It was
again. Thank you.
it
Yeah,
was
great
brilliant. It was brilliant.
conversation.
It was brilliant conversation. Had super fun. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, Bohemian Pursuits podcast.
So tune in, listen to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. You can catch us there.
See y'all. Cheers.